You won't believe what NATO first dismissed as a sensor error. The Saab Gripen was designed to be affordable, simple, and easy to maintain, a practical fighter for nations that didn't want to spend billions on stealth jets. For years, it was predictable. Then the data stopped making sense. Its infrared signature dropped to near stealth levels. Its range exceeded what a single-engine fighter should achieve. On paper, nothing had changed. The reason wasn't a new aircraft or engine. It was Rolls-Royce, quietly working inside the Gripen E's existing power plant, not to add thrust, but to control heat. Engineers redesigned internal airflow, thermal layering, and control software. From the outside, the engine looked identical. Internally, everything was different. There was no announcement. NATO wasn't briefed. So when Alliance sensors began recording anomalous readings, analysts assumed system errors. They weren't errors. A fighter once seen as a budget option was suddenly far harder to track, quieter, cooler, and far more dangerous than expected. And by the time NATO realized it, the aircraft was already operational. That's why infrared-guided missiles are such a threat. Rolls-Royce completely redesigned the engine's internal thermal routing. The result was shocking. The Gripen E's heat signature dropped to levels never seen before in a single-engine fighter. NATO sensors recorded unusually low IR readings and assumed a system malfunction. After recalibration, the numbers didn't change. A single-engine aircraft was behaving almost like a twin-engine stealth design. That wasn't supposed to be possible. The second breakthrough came from fuel combustion. By reshaping internal airflow paths, Rolls-Royce dramatically improved fuel efficiency. The Gripen E's range didn't just increase, it reached endurance levels that traditionally required two engines. For countries like Canada, this mattered. Long-range Arctic patrols have always demanded heavier, more expensive aircraft. Now a jet lighter than the F-35 could cover nearly the same distances, with better agility and far lower operating costs. The most disruptive upgrade was digital engine control.
Rolls-Royce introduced an adaptive system that adjusted thrust almost instantly. Pilots reported acceleration unlike anything they'd flown before. In combat simulations, the Gripen could escape danger or seize firing positions before older NATO interceptors could react. Sweden kept the results classified, but NATO eventually saw enough data to force a rethink. Reduced heat signature, extended range, instant throttle response, individually impressive, together transformative. Nothing changed on the outside. On paper, the engine looked identical. In reality, a single-engine fighter had jumped into the same performance tier as billion-dollar stealth aircraft, without the cost, complexity, or maintenance burden. Closed-door meetings followed in Brussels. NATO demanded answers. Sweden offered only one confirmation. The Gripen E had received internal optimizations. The rest stayed classified.
The truth about Rolls-Royce's redesign only surfaced later through internal documents. A NATO analyst uncovered it by cross-referencing engine micro-vibration signatures. The patterns matched components produced under Rolls-Royce's precision micro-engineering programs. That was the confirmation. By then, the Gripen had become both a threat and an opportunity. A threat because it proved affordable fighters could rival the world's most expensive aircraft. An opportunity because it showed nations with limited budgets could access capabilities once reserved for superpowers. NATO's real concern wasn't performance, it was precedent. If Sweden and Rolls-Royce could collaborate this deeply without oversight, others could do the same, bypassing NATO's traditional control of fighter development. As investigations deepened, more hidden upgrades emerged. One was airflow pressure modulation. An internal system stabilized thrust at extreme altitudes, allowing the aircraft to climb higher, remain there longer, and burn less fuel. No external changes. Pilots simply reported unprecedented balance and high-altitude performance. Another was acoustic signature control. Rolls-Royce altered internal components to break up stable engine frequency bands. This didn't silence the jet. It confused acoustic tracking drones, reducing their ability to classify the Gripen as a priority target. The most advanced system was adaptive thermal management. Sensors monitored heat in real time and rerouted micro-cooling paths milliseconds before hotspots formed. Unlike older aircraft that rely on pilot input, the Gripen managed its infrared signature automatically. The result was unpredictable IR visibility, appearing, fading, then reappearing, making missile locks far harder to maintain. Nothing changed on the outside. Official specifications stayed the same, but NATO realized the reality had shifted, quietly, permanently. If you followed this far, subscribe. This is the kind of analysis rarely discussed. So why did Sweden keep this secret? Because it fit their defense doctrine. The capability was classified even from much of Sweden's political leadership. Only a small engineering circle had full access. That secrecy caused friction once NATO began questioning Stockholm's transparency. NATO uncovered the truth through micro-vibration analysis. The engine signatures matched precision microengineering patterns unique to Rolls-Royce. That was decisive proof. Rolls-Royce had been deeply involved in the Gripen's core systems, without NATO being informed. Concern spread fast. If Sweden could do this quietly, others could too. Traditional export controls couldn't track internal, invisible upgrades. In closed-door meetings, U.S. officials described the Gripen as a strategic wildcard, affordable, scalable, and capable of threatening protected airspace without Washington's approval. This wasn't just technical, it was about power.
Who controls advanced fighter technology? And who decides who gets it? While NATO was still reacting, Saab and Rolls-Royce had already moved on. The next upgrades focused on survivability, deception, and automated threat response. These systems were integrated directly into the engine controls, creating a fully harmonized aircraft. Algorithms altered internal vibrations based on altitude, speed, and threat conditions. In tests, NATO systems misclassified the Gripen as a drone, then a trainer, before recognizing it as a fighter, disrupting automated threat priority systems. Then came microburst cooling. Instead of releasing heat predictably, the engine emitted irregular cooling pulses, breaking infrared missile locks. In NATO wargame simulations, survivability increased by up to 40%. No exotic materials, no stealth coatings, just internal engineering. The geopolitical impact was clear. Nations with limited budgets could now field aircraft approaching top-tier performance, quietly shifting the balance of air power.
This threatened more than a technology gap. It threatened Western geopolitical leverage built on selling extremely expensive aircraft. Countries that once dismissed the Gripen as too light or too simple were suddenly asking about upgraded variants. Demonstration flights were requested. Access to the most advanced internal configurations was denied. Sweden realized the new Gripen was no longer just a fighter. It was a strategic asset, one capable of shifting regional power balances. The irony is that Sweden never intended to challenge NATO. The goal was straightforward: build a fighter that delivers high performance, reliability, and independence, without total reliance on American technology. In doing so, they exposed weaknesses in NATO's own air power assumptions. Western strategists were forced to confront a new reality. Agility, adaptability, and quiet internal upgrades could matter more than sheer size of price. The era of dominance by massively expensive stealth fighters may be nearing its limits, and the trigger wasn't a global arms race. It was Rolls-Royce quietly redesigning the heart of a single-engine jet. By the time NATO grasped the scale of the change, the Gripen E had taken on a new identity, a lightweight fighter with heavyweight consequences, reshaping expectations about modern air combat. Thank you for watching. This analysis is based on open-source information and contains no classified material or official government positions. If you value deep, independent analysis, like and subscribe.